Well, good morning, everybody. Ladies, lords, gentlemen, ministers, shadow ministers, chairman, Minette. Thank you for asking me to speak to you today. If you learn anything about farming or agriculture, you're in the wrong place in terms of me. But I want to talk about opportunity and be cautiously optimistic about the future of British farming, the future of the British food system. And I think it's commendable that the Oxford Conference is applying that stance, because it's very important in the backdrop. We're in a day-in, day-out context at the moment. And I'd also like to wish you all a very happy new year. In looking strategically, in the medium term, 3, 5, 7 years, Michael talked about 25-year plans. By definition, we're a long way out. But frankly, I don't know in 12 weeks' time whether the UK shoppers are going to walk into Tesco and find a hiatus or a normal day. And that's not acceptable. And I think British business is sick and tired of what is happening at the House of Commons at the moment. I think the British people are simmering with frustration and bordering on anger at a goldfish bowl that is full of a fish tank of lunatics. And that is not a way to run an advanced nation. Britain is a country to be enormously proud of. We have got a tank, a pint, whichever water metaphor you want to use. It's well and truly more than half full. But we're a national and international embarrassment at the moment. And I work in banking, and there are billions and billions of pounds that have left the City of London by British and international fund managers because there's a lack of trust in the stability of the United Kingdom. And that is not acceptable. So I don't know whether there's going to be a deal or no deal, Minister. I give you all credit for being candid in what a no deal situation may mean. Many years ago, they said Northern Ireland is the problem to every solution. And much progress was made in removing that criticism of the region. But a no deal, to my mind, Minister, also means there is a physical border between Northern Ireland, the United Kingdom, and the Republic of Ireland, and not enough people talk about that. And equally, we look at the British-European situation naturally through a telescope where we're looking out and in. And if you turn that telescope around, a no-deal situation is disastrous for the European Union, most particularly for the Republic of Ireland. And the situation we're in at the moment is totally and utterly disastrous. And politicians in Westminster at the moment need to think about their responsibilities. I say that as a director of a bank. And they also need to think about how they're going to be written up in time, because I think political historians will be fiercely critical of the people who are currently standing in the chamber. So, let's be optimistic. I'm a Coventry City and Glasgow Rangers supporter, I should add. The latter of those two give me full joy after last week's events in Glasgow. The Minister talked about technology, and I would also like to talk about the other side of capital that makes technology work, and that's human capital. And in this respect, we are blessed in the United Kingdom in having, as the Minister said, world-class institutions, truly blessed. I mean, we're standing in Oxford, one of the, I believe, top 3, 4 universities in the whole world. But interestingly enough, just as London may be the capital of the UK, it's not the centre of the UK. And the centre of food science in the UK is in places like Aberystwyth, Aberdeen, Edinburgh, Norwich, Reading, and Belfast. And I am very fortunate to be the chair of the Industrial Advisory Board at the Institute for Global Food Security at Queen's University in Belfast, the #1 rated food science university in the United Kingdom. How wonderful is that? And we're blessed in having Nigel Scullin, Professor Scullin, I should say, on the Oxford Farming Committee group. And he's a driving force for a fantastic new centre that's been opened in Belfast this year, somewhere like 45 to 50 million pounds, in a brand new world-leading centre. And I think the founder of this institute, Professor Chris Elliott, stood here last year, and he would have talked about terms such as authenticity, traceability, integrity, and trust. And Queen's is at the forefront of this, as are the other institutions in the UK. And those institutions are shining lights, but they will only deliver productivity, capability, competitiveness, if what comes out of those universities feeds down to the farm. And I think the great thing about the digital revolution the Minister talked about, the Internet of Things, is that it can transform the capability of every farm. Big farms aren't necessarily the best farms. Small farms aren't necessarily the worst farms. There are great small farmers who are highly productive, and there are big farmers who are crap. And in that respect, technology brings this world we're entering, and listening to the Minister very eloquently outline all the channels where technology is coming through at the moment, it is transformational. But what we have to do, I think, Minister, is first of all make sure that 5G is across the counties of the United Kingdom sooner rather than later, not just the capability to stand by a telephone box and make a mobile phone call. And secondly, that the human capital of Britain's farms is brought through in this generation, in this technical generation, so the universities are connected to the smallest farm. And that requires a process involving training and instruction for every age of the future farmer. We can't be ageist. There are people well into the 70s and 80s who are much more tech savvy than I am. Equally, we have a farming industry where people are retiring, becoming elderly, and sadly passing away, and there's a need for fundamental generational change. And that human capital is going to be critical in seeing through all the innovations that the Minister talked about. So let's come on to the consumer in the last thoughts I want to make about farming today. Because the shopper ultimately is your customer, be it in the UK or further afield. And there are some important processes taking place amongst the shoppers which I think provide you with really strategic opportunity. First thing is there's going to be a lot more of them. In the UK, I don't know how many people live in the UK at the moment, Minister. I think it's around 64.5 million, but the Home Office probably doesn't have a better figure than that. It's growing around 1% a year, to the best of my knowledge. Population growth is very good for food demand. But the consumer is also adjusting in what they buy, where they buy it, and how they consume their food. And it's very important that consumer insight is part of the digital revolution that farming has to embrace. Well-being is undoubtedly the most powerful term in the food industry. I'm a great example of well-being to the extent I eat too much and I drink too much. But I know I eat too much and I know I drink too much. And I think the vast majority of people in the United Kingdom understand that now. And there is an obesity crisis, and there has to be change. And there is change. And well-being is going to be a significant driving force for the food markets. But well-being is about simple food. It's about wholesome food. It's not about processed food. It's not about highly engineered food. It's not about synthetic food. And farming is very well placed to embrace this fundamental change in food markets. Salt, sugar, saturated fats are going to be an increasing or decreasing part, structurally decreasing part of people's diets. And in that respect, something like veganism, which was sandals and hairy armpits 20 years ago, is mainstream. Marks & Spencer today have announced a major product launch for vegan food. This isn't going away. It's highly innovative, and the UK is at the forefront of this movement. Eating habits are changing to the extent that folks aren't doing, shopping and eating habits are changing. Folks aren't doing a weekly or monthly shop. They're doing small basket shops. They're shopping more locally in convenience stores. They're not doing trolley shops in supermarkets. They're eating in a much more unstructured way. The family meal is less of an occasion. Nearly 40% of the food occasions in the UK are eaten outside the home. The Minister talked about supermarkets, but any major food business has to consider food eaten outside the home as a strategic part of growth, because we see that market growing 3 times the rate of the retail market. And as an aside, I'd be interested in if anyone in this room wants a debate about whether British supermarket industry should be a duopoly. If there's anyone in this room that thinks Asda and Sainsbury's merging is a good idea, I'd love to hear the argument. And what we tend to find is the fewer calories one eats, the more expensive they are, or the higher value they are. And that is great news for the British farming industry structurally, to my mind. So I think at the moment we have a House of Commons which is a quintessentially British political cock-up. However, if I look at words that characterize the future of the British food industry, and then you just think about what the opposite of those words are, I think you should be very optimistic about your future. Authentic, well-being, trustworthy, provenance, simple, heritage, local, wholesome, integrity. Quintessentially British food industry terms. And so I wish you all well with the next 12 weeks, but more importantly, I wish you well with the next 12, 25, 50 years, because I think there is a tremendous opportunity for British farming to seize. Thank you.